Morning, everyone. Sorry for the delay this morning. We're learning Mishnah Eruvin, Parak Vav, Chapter 6, Mishnah Ches, Mishnah 8. Now, we've already discussed many times before that if there are at least two Jews living in a chutzner in a courtyard, there are two houses open to a courtyard, they cannot carry from the houses to the courtyard, from the courtyard to the houses without making an Eruv Chatzeres, where the members of the courtyard all donate some bread, and they put the bread in one house. It's considered symbolically everybody's living in that house, and the house and the chutzner are just one domain, belonging to one person, to one household. Therefore, they become one domain, and you can carry from the house to the courtyard, from the courtyard to the house, or in the courtyard itself. And we have learned previously the same idea applies to when Chatzeres courtyards are open into an alleyway. You have two courtyards opening into an alleyway. That so too, the alleyway you may not carry into it unless you make what's called a shituf, where the same thing we said before by the Chatzeres you do by the alley, in which the members of the courtyards donate food. The food is donated in what is now stored in one of the courtyards. So symbolically, it's like everybody's in that courtyard, and you have one courtyard leading into the alleyway. It's considered one domain in that way, and therefore you can carry from the courtyard into the alleyway, from the alley into the courtyard, or in the alley itself. So now the Mishnah says like this: you have 5 courtyards that are opened into an alley. I don't think you can see this picture very well. But you can see you have the houses in the courtyard, and each courtyard has an opening into the mavi, into the alley. If you have a Mishnah in front of you, you may see words in parentheses, zu, lezu, upsuchais, and they're in parentheses because the Gemara says they shouldn't be there. So the case is 5 courtyards that were opened into an alleyway. Now, the members of each chutzner, of each courtyard, they made an eruv, but they did not participate together in the alley. Mutarin b'chatzeres, so they may carry in the courtyards. And again, whenever we talk about permitted in the courtyards, it means from the houses to the courtyards, from the courtyards to the houses, or in the courtyard itself. But they cannot do that in the alley because there was no shituf made. And if they did participate together in the mavoi, they made the shituf for the mavoi. Besides for making the eruv in the chatzeres, they also made the shituf in the alleyway. They came together in the alleyway. Mutarin kan v'kan, then it's permissible to carry in both places. Now, let's say the members of the courtyards, the members of each courtyard made an eruv, and all the members of the courtyard, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. They made an eruv in the courtyard. They made a shituf in the alley. And one of the members of the courtyard forgot to participate in the eruv of his chutzner, but he did participate in the shituf, in the coming together in the alleyway. He forgot to participate. He forgot to give something towards the eruv of the chutzner, but he did give something towards the shituf in the mavi, in the alleyway. He forgot to do what he needs to do to be part of what permits carrying in the courtyard, but he participate in what does permit carrying in the alley. Still, mutar and kan b'kan. Everybody can carry in both places. Now, this needs explanation. We've learned until now that if a person forgets to participate in the eruv for the chutzner, that messes up the whole eruv for everyone. No one can carry unless that person is mevatel rishus, and that person abandons his share in the courtyard. And then the eruv chatzeres can work for everybody else. Then now it can work for everybody. Now it can work. So why here are we saying that when somebody did not participate in the chutzner, but everybody in the chutzner did participate in the shituf of the alleyway, then now you can carry in the courtyard? But somebody's missing in the courtyard chutzner. How can they carry there? So explanation is like this. If you think about it, if all the members of the chatzeres of the courtyard come together as one to make the shituf to participate in the alleyway coming together, so that itself now combines everyone. We're all together in one courtyard. All the courtyards are considered like one. And everybody's able to go ahead and carry into the alleyway because they came together for the alleyway. Why should they need to do something specific for the courtyard? There's no reason. Essentially, if you go ahead and you come together, if you make the shita for the alleyway, and everybody now is considered one because of what they did to come together in the alleyway, so that should cover what each person's chutzner too, because everybody's already come together through participating in coming together for the alleyway. Why would each one need to now do something separate in each one's specific courtyard? And the answer is because the sages were concerned that if that could work, you could have a situation where a child can be living in a courtyard. He doesn't see anything being done to permit carrying from a courtyard, a house to the courtyard, or vice versa. He doesn't see it because they've done the shita for the alleyway, which is in a different chutzner, because that's what you could do. You put it in one of the chutzneris, and that works for the other. You can put it in one courtyard, works for the rest of the courtyards. But you could have children living in a courtyard that never saw anything done to permit carrying from a house to a courtyard. Now, the reason that they could is because it was covered by the alleyway. But they're going to think that you never have to do anything for a house to a courtyard or vice versa. And that can make problems at a different point where you only have an eruv for the chutzner and no shita for the alleyway. Therefore, the sages said that you have to have both. Got to do both. You got to do eruv chatzeris, and you got to do a shita for the mavui, and then everybody can carry everywhere. Here we have an exception. Here we're going to make an exception because an eruv was made in the chutzner. It's not like nothing was done. Something was done. The eruv was made in the chutzner. It's just that it doesn't work because somebody forgot to participate, but something was done. So the child sees something was done. Therefore, in this case, there's no confusion. If we actually are relying on what was done for the alleyway for carrying the chutzner, if we rely on that in this case, the problem why we don't always rely isn't relevant here. Because since here they made an eruv chatzeres, but because somebody forgot it doesn't work, the child sees that something was done, they're not going to make the mistake to think that you can carry from the houses to the chutzner without anything. Something was done. Happens to be it didn't work, and that the child's not really aware of. And therefore, the confusion that could come by just relying on the shita for the alleyway under these circumstances won't be a problem, since an eruv was done. It just didn't work because somebody forgot. And now what was done for the alleyway will cover both the alleyway and the courtyards for people to carry in them. However, let's say the case is that what happened was everybody participated in their chutzner, in their courtyard. The problem is that somebody from the courtyard who needs to participate in the mavi in the alleyway shituf didn't do so. So everybody participated in their courtyards, and one person from that would be using this alleyway didn't participate in the shita for the alleyway. Then mutarim b'chatzeiros v'asurim b'mavui. In that situation, they'll be able to carry in the courtyard, but they won't be able to do that in the alleyway because once it's missing a member, once we're missing one member of the alleyway, meaning if somebody would use the alleyway, they didn't participate in the shita and the coming together of the alleyway, that messes up what was done for the alleyway, and you won't be able to carry in there. Then the Mishna concludes, an alleyway in regard to courtyards is like a courtyard in regard to houses. This comment is really explaining to us why there is such a thing as a shituf mavois. Why did the sages institute that we have to come together to use the alleyway? And the statement that explains that is because we see an alleyway in regard to the courtyards as we see a courtyard in regard to the houses. The sages instituted an eruv chatzeris because of the fact that if you look at a chutzner, a courtyard, in regard to houses, the courtyard is somewhat public. The houses are private. If you could just carry from the house to the courtyard or vice versa, or in the courtyard, you'll think that it's okay in a real rishus rabban, in a real public domain where you're not allowed to carry. Then again, you can carry in the courtyard, you can carry in the public domain. You can carry from the house to the courtyard, or from the courtyard to the house. You can carry from the house to the public domain, and public domain to the house. In order to avoid that kind of confusion, the sages instituted that you need an Erev Chatzeres. So the Mishnah says the same thing, the same idea applies when you talk about a alleyway in regard to a courtyard. The courtyard is somewhat public. The people of the chutzner, of that specific chutzner, use it. The maviv is more public because all the courtyards use it. So therefore, the sages said we're concerned that the same confusion can come up. If you can carry from the courtyard to the alleyway or vice versa, if you can carry from something more private to something more public or something less public to more public, that can cause the same confusion of a private domain to a public domain. The Bartanura says the Mishnah is teaching us, speaking this out, because you might have thought that maybe we're only concerned about confusion from a house that's a real private area to a public area like a courtyard. But a courtyard to an alleyway that are both public areas, maybe the confusion wouldn't come from that. And the Mishnah told us that no sages felt that that confusion is there too, between the chutzner, the less public courtyard in regard to the more public alleyway. The confusion of a private domain to public domain applies there too, and therefore they said you will not be able to carry from the courtyard to the mavi or vice versa, or in the alley, unless you make the shita for the alley. Have a wonderful day. And a Freilich and Purim Katan.